Donahue, Gross,
Here.
Patterson,
Here.
Tashore, Thompson, Vice President Reed,
Here.
President Stewart,
Here.
Mayor.
Here.
Council, last week I had circulated via email with the agenda the agreement, settlement agreement with Alan Reeves. It has been prepared by our legal counsel, as well as an opportunity to be reviewed by the attorney for the FOP. Got it? It's okay. So without any objections, we'll take action at next Monday's meeting. What is the date for next Monday, Tim? 10th of November? The settlement agreement would be made the 10th of November 2014 by between the Borough of Eddystone and the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 27 and Alan Reeves, who at the time was a patrol officer for the Borough of Eddystone Police Department. Whereas the union is the recognized collective bargaining representative on behalf of the police officers employed by the borough, including until his resignation as a borough police officer employee. And whereas in 2007, a dispute arose between the parties regarding the borough charging the employee 252 hours of sick time in connection with his hospitalization in conjunction with the cardiac catheterization. And whereas in 2009, a dispute arose between the parties regarding the employee's request to carry over 204 vacation hours and 12 personal time hours forwarded into 2010, or to alternatively be paid out at such time. Whereas in 2011, a dispute arose between the parties regarding the borough charging the employee 84 hours of sick time in conjunction with his hospitalization with a gallbladder removal surgery. And whereas in 2012, a dispute arose between the parties regarding the employee's ability to receive payout of 36 hours of personal time. Whereas without either party admitting any fault, and solely to avoid the cost of uncertainty of arbitration, the parties desire to resolve the aforementioned disputes upon the terms set forth herein. Now therefore, in recognition of the above recitals, in exchange for the mutual considerations set forth herein, the legal sufficiency of which each of the party hereby recognizes, intending to be legally bound, the parties hereby agree to the following. Number one, no precedent in terms of the agreement shall be of no precedent, and neither party shall use this agreement, its terms, or any underlying incident as such in any proceedings against the party. Number two, payment by the borough to the employee. The borough shall make payment to the employee for 588 hours of time at the employee's 2012 hourly rate of $33.39 for a total of $19,633.32. Such payment shall be made in 23 equal monthly installments beginning of $818.06, beginning on or before December 1st, 2014, and continuing through October of 2016, followed by a final installment of $817.97. Resolution of all disputes. The terms set forth have constitute a resolution of all disputes between the parties existing as of the date of this agreement regarding the employee's employment by the borough. No admission of wrongdoing. Neither party admits or acknowledges any wrongdoing with regard to the aforementioned grievance, and each recognizes that this settlement is made without prejudice and in recognition of the uncertainty of the arbitration process. Entire agreement. The parties each acknowledge that this agreement sets forth the entire understanding of the parties with regard to the resolution of these grievances, and neither party is entitled to any relief not specified forth herein. In witness thereof, the parties set their hands the day and year set forth in the opening paragraph of this agreement. So, counsel, with Without any questions or objections, we will be taking action to approve the settlement agreement between Patrol Officer Reeves and the Borough of Eddystone, which dates back to grievances from 2007, 2009, 2011, and 2012. Council, I've also circulated via email, and this email actually was attached with attorney-client privilege, a memorandum of understanding with Chief Edward Macheski. Essentially, the memorandum of understanding would serve as an employment agreement for the chief. Understanding that this is currently in legal status, being reviewed by both the borough as well as the attorneys for the FOP. Just wanted to kind of give a quick overview of the things that were in the memorandum of understanding. We obviously had addressed salary. We addressed all of the certification requirements that we would expect the chief of police to have in place during his tenure. We addressed the automobile usage. We addressed the chief and his responsibilities for scheduling time for the borough. We addressed vacation time. We addressed personal time off. We addressed that this would be an at-will employment relationship. There's actually two sections in the memorandum of understanding. There's the section for the removal of the chief without cause, which would just be simply a vote of Borough Council to remove the chief from his position. And then a termination for just cause if he was in breach of any of the civil service rules that are associated with a police officer. We would have spelled out the reasons why we would be able to terminate the chief. Also deals with his pension. So I know that the chief had met with the attorneys at the FOP this morning. If there's any questions that council has, please direct those questions directly to me during the course of the week. Hopefully we'd be able to incorporate any comments that council has, as well as any comments that the chief's legal counsel would have, and we would be able to go into executing this agreement hopefully next week. I would hope it would be next week, and the agreement would be with an effective date of January 1st, 2015. Mr. Presente, thank you for assembling the right-to-know requests that we've received. I actually see that some of them date back all the way from August, September, October of 2014.
That's all 3 months.
All 3 months?
Yes.
I'll start with those that have already been addressed. The borough's in receipt of a right-to-know dated the 12th of August 2014 from Mr. Ralph Orr on 13th Street. Mr. Orr is requesting copies of the following: a payroll list of all camp employees who were paid by the borough for 2014 camp at Lighthouse Hall, and a list of the total amount paid for 2014 and their rate of pay, as well as their positions. And you've already responded to this particular request, is that correct, Mr. Vicente?
What's the date, Mr. President?
That would be August the 12th.
Yes. The response, the cover letter to the response appears on top of the actual right-to-know form in the packet you're holding.
All right. How about the supporting documentation? Is that something that...
That's something in the borough files, but not in your hands.
Okay. Would I have an opportunity for the ones that were filled to actually just review the supporting documentation as well?
Yeah, it's right in the office.
Thank you. Borough's in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 19th of August 2014 from Mr. Ralph Orr of 13th Street. Mr. Orr is requesting a copy of the borough payroll sheet showing what rates Mike McNamee and Joseph Pretty received in their new roles as they were promoted into as of 2014, with Michael McNamee being the sergeant of the police department, as well as Joe Pretty, who has been promoted to the lieutenant. To include their new rate of pay and shift differential rate, also a payroll sheet showing the rate of pay prior to promotion and prior to shift differential rates. And this right to know request has been filled, correct, Mr. Placente?
Correct.
On the 12th of August 2014, the borough's in receipt of a right to know request from Mr. Ralph Orr of 13th Street. A copy of all right to know request cover sheets submitted by Glen Wilson to the Borough of Eddystone within the last 6 months, along with copies of the transaction receipts for monies paid to the borough for records received by Glen Wilson. And this one has already been addressed, correct, Mr. Placente?
Correct, on August 22nd, 2014.
The borough is in receipt of a right to know request dated the 19th of August 2014 from Mr. Ralph Orr, 13th Street. His right to know request was copies of all invoices submitted to the borough by Taylor and Signor Repairs for repairs on police vehicles for the month of May 2014. And that has been filled, correct, Mr. Vicente?
Filled August 22nd, 2014.
12th of August 2014, the borough is in receipt of a right to know request from Mr. Ralph Orr of 13th Street. Mr. Orr is requesting a copy of all clearances to include Act 151 child abuse clearances and Act 34, which is the Pennsylvania State Criminal Clearance, with Social Security numbers. Is that SS numbers?
That's what we took that to mean, yes.
Okay. Redacted for the individuals who worked the summer camp of 2014. And I see that you had fulfilled that request September the 2nd, 2014.
That's correct.
Borough's in receipt of a right to know request dated the 11th of September 2014, once again by Mr. Ralph Orr of 13th Street. Mr. Orr is requesting a copy of the contract issued to the new Chief of Police showing what salaries and benefits he will be receiving, or a copy of the minutes of the council meeting in which the salary was voted on for the new Chief of Police. I see that you filled that on the 15th, correct?
Well, the reply was no such contracts here at the present time, because we're looking at that tonight.
I would anticipate we would see a follow-up request on this right to know in consideration that a memorandum of understanding has been circulated.
If we get one, we'll fill it too.
Okay. Borough's in receipt of a right to know request dated the 18th of September 2014 by Ralph Orr of 13th Street. The right to know request is requesting copies of 1, the paperwork showing the amount of recycling in pounds sent to the recycling plant since the program started. 2, the name of the recycling facility the borough uses to recycle their collections. 3, the amount of savings the borough has received or been paid for by recycling. 4, the amount that the borough has paid for this program to be started. 5, the number of households that participate in the recycling program. 6, documentation showing how the borough is paid for the recycling they bring to the facility. 7, the number of new workers the borough has hired since the program has been put in place to assist with the recycling, and the names and rates of pay for all highway workers. Do we have that exact documentation at this time, or I see that you filled it on the 24th, but I know we're still in the process of seeing how much money is being generated through the recycling program.
Well, the thing about that is that as right to know officer, I fulfill the request in the form of documents that exist in the borough. I don't respond to interrogatories such as how much money did you make. But if somebody says, produce the paperwork from the recycling contract, then I produce it.
So essentially, we get a printout from Recommunity.
But I'm not obligated, I don't respond to interrogatories.
Okay.
I fulfill document requests pursuant to right to know forms that come into the borough.
Borough is in receipt of a right to know request dated the 12th of October 2014 by Ralph Orr of 13th Street. Mr. Orr is requesting copies of the signed timesheets for police officers showing all hours and overtime work for the months of August, September, and October to date. And that was fulfilled the 17th of October, is that correct?
Yes. For the police records, yes.
Question.
Yes, sir.
On one of his things that he was asked for people without social security numbers, was that given out to him?
He actually asked for redacted, but we don't ever give social security
Okay.
numbers out or addresses of borough employees or especially police, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But he didn't ask for that. He asked to be redacted, but I can tell you that Tina and I just black ink them and then Xerox them, and
All right.
you can't see them when they're redacted.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that.
Yeah, but that's a good question, but yeah, we're careful. We try to be very careful with that.
Yeah.
Borough's in receipt of a right to know request dated the 10th of October 2014 by Ralph Moore of 13th Street. Mr. Orr is requesting a copy of the ladies' auxiliary EIN number, and this is a request that has not been fulfilled, correct yet? Correct, Mr. Vicente?
Correct. I received 8 additional requests in October from Mr. Orr, and I wrote to him, and well, I didn't ask, but I told him I'm gonna need an additional 30 days if the act permits to assemble the paperwork. Some of the paperwork gets assembled by Tina Torres here in the borough, and then some by the chief of police, so we gotta watch the time, just because of the personnel,
Right.
so.
Well, that's one, at least one of the questions that I have is that, you know, there's been a lot of right to know requests that have come in here in the last 3 months.
8 in October, 3 in September, 6 in August.
Is there a need that has been created to bring additional labor in, even if it's for some type of temporary administrative help, just to help with fulfilling the request for the right to knows?
I mean, the only, I would, see, it's easy for me to say no, but it does involve the chief of police time, which is a difficulty for the borough.
Right.
And it involves Tina's time, and Tina does so many other things here that sometimes it pushes other things back, but other things are important things like emergency services, like calls from residents, like I have this problem, non-police matters, payroll, for example, like so. I would say no right now, but I would say to you that it's a burden, and if Tina can hear me talking, she's probably saying, what are you saying no for, but.
She actually said no.
But it
I
becomes
shake her head no.
it becomes a burden,
Can I ask a question?
because we're not that big here, we're just not.
Do we have a policy for how to handle the right to know? Like the cost of what other boroughs charge?
Well, there's a
The right to know.
statute
There's a
in
statute.
Pennsylvania, and there's an ordinance
Right.
enacted here in the borough,
Okay,
and we follow that.
okay.
But,
Do they have to pay a head? Do some boroughs charge you a head?
you can be charged ahead for sums greater than like $100, I think it
Okay.
is.
Do we
Anytime
follow
I've
suit?
ever requested a fee, they can be waived, the copying fee,
Right.
and sometimes it is. But anytime I've requested a fee from a requester in Eddystone,
Right,
it's been paid except for one time,
okay,
which is probably a year ago.
Okay.
And it was just under the $100, unfortunately, for that request, for
Right,
$99.
right.
That's sitting in the office still.
okay.
But, so I have requested the copying fee, it's limited by statute, you can't charge for administrative time.
Oh, I understand that, I understand.
Which
I'm just,
sometimes makes it tough, because that's our real expense.
That's our
The
expense.
postage and copying isn't that
Right.
big of an expense.
so when someone, say they spend over $100, right, and then they don't pay that, and then they request for another $99, do we still give them all that, or do we say you still owe us the $100 from the last time, and how much of a burden is that to the
It's a
borough
great
itself?
question. It's happened, the only time it's happened to us is one requester did not pay a $99 fee. We did not request that in advance because it didn't exceed the threshold in the statute. That requester may have requested additional items, I'm not sure.
Right.
But if he did, I definitely filled them and didn't hold the thing he never paid for. I didn't hold any new requests because of the thing he didn't pay for, but he may not have made new requests past that, I could check it. Because it's only been one person.
Right,
Who
so-
fits what you're saying, didn't pay their bill.
My next question is, say, someone just keeps asking for right to know, which is wonderful, but they don't pick it up, and it just piles and piles. How long do we have to keep it before,
I've been kind of going through the statute because there's some small provisions for,
I mean, that
Kind of
can
like
really eat up a lot of our
duplicate-
time as a borough.
it's been eating up a lot of time.
That's not fair.
At the
Yeah,
end of the summer and into the fall, it took Tina out of her and she has a full-time, when I
Sure
say
she does.
full-time position at the borough, she literally has tasks
Right.
every day, that
Absolutely.
if she doesn't do them,
Right, it's
they're
all-
not done, because
right.
she's the person that does
Right.
that thing. And if
Right.
she spends a half a day on these, we as a borough, by the end of the
Absolutely.
month, accumulate half days.
Absolutely.
And Tina doesn't take any time off,
I know
can
she
tell you,
doesn't.
you know. So,
She doesn't put in for overtime either.
Or
She
overtime.
works far
no,
over.
she stayed
works.
tonight to get paid for
I
work.
know she
yeah,
does.
Yeah, but my point is this.
Right,
If Tina spends 6 hours on one of these requests,
Right.
we can't charge for the
oh, I
time,
understand that,
but it's it's borough time that we lose and
Right.
don't. The work still gets done,
Right.
but it backs us up, it does.
I'm just curious what other municipalities do. I mean,
I've been kinda going through the statute, I've talked to this person, that person, and the other person, and, I mean, obviously, we comply with the law,
Right.
and we want to, and there's no
Absolutely,
bones about that. And it really is, kind of incumbent upon us to get the request and to just as timely as we can
Right,
get them responded
right,
to. But
right.
we do lose in terms of time and cost, we do.
Right,
There's no way of
Right.
it saying
What's the deal with the $100? We can go after them.
You
if
can
it's
ask
over
it in advance. So if it's gonna
Okay.
be a real big copying job, and I've had some fairly big ones, like the President Stewart's he said, give me the copies, I have in a file in the back, it's probably like this for the recent ones for these months. But, I've never asked anybody in advance, or maybe once or twice I have. But if it gets to a certain amount where it's a big, huge copy,
Right.
like just the cost of the copy, then you can ask in advance, they pay, and then, but otherwise, sometimes I've waived the fee, but sometimes I've charged, and anyone we've charged, I do it in writing,
Okay,
and they've always paid. So I never had like a problem
Except for
chasing
this
money.
one, right?
so should we do
Except
a
for the
policy?
biggest one, it's like $99.
So
I
I've
think we
probably
should do
got
policy.
somebody else asking his questions now, so
Right.
he doesn't,
Well, yeah, that one's in the back, the one that didn't get paid. But I asked for the payment on that 2 or 3 times in writing, but I never got the.
Sean, is there any way we can go after him for that?
I was already
He's
asked
looking
that
into it.
question. I'll look into it. You could probably, I mean, the answer is yes.
Yes.
But I mean,
We'll pay him more than $100, trying to.
substantially, you know.
I
he
have
knows the
another
answer.
question too. There's one in there for the, Liaison Auxiliaries EIN number.
Yes.
They're not entitled to that. That's a private entity.
Well, I only give, information that's in the borough halls, and I don't think I have any information on
Yeah.
ladies
Okay.
auxiliary anyway, quite frankly, but.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, he's
sometimes
not
these-
entitled to that, because that's, private entity.
Well, I'm almost done my list, and then we'll kind of summarize everything as is. Borough's in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 10th of October 2014 from Ralph Orr of 13th Street. Right-to-know is requesting copies of the documents showing funds received from the railroad in the form of donations to the Eddystone Borough, Eddystone Police Department, Eddystone Fire Company, or Eddystone Ladies Auxiliary, or Eddystone Recreation.
What
Again, the
railroad are
fire,
you talking
fire
about?
department and the ladies auxiliary are not borough entities, are they?
No, they are not
I'm sorry.
private.
I was just saying that the volunteer fire department and the ladies auxiliary are, I believe that they're not borough entities, are
No,
they?
they are not. They have their own charter.
So if we happen to have that information, I guess you need to turn it over, but there's no reason that, we
We
should.
don't keep their financial, I can tell you on the record, on the tape, that we don't keep financial records of the firehouse, the fire company, or the ladies auxiliary here at the borough, other than relief funds or things that go through the borough books, which
Right.
are available in our public records.
Whereas in some past situations, the rec board was a borough organization. It was funded by the borough, and those records seem to be non-existent. And the Wind Committee, which was judged to be a borough entity, those records were never provided either. So, you know, if we're not able to produce records for borough entities, I don't see why we should be even thinking about providing records for private entities that aren't part of the borough.
Borough's in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 10th of October 2014 by Ralph Orr of 13th Street. Request is for the total cost of all overtime for the police department since January 1st, 2014, under the direction of Alan Reeves Jr. Borough is in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 10th of October 2014, requesting a copy of all exit interviews and copies of the resignation letters for all police officers who resigned in 2014. Borough is in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 12th of October 2014 from Ralph Orr of 13th Street, requesting a copy of any handwritten checks written by the Borough for the month of August, September, and October to date. Borough is in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 12th of October 2014 from Ralph Orr of 13th Street. He's requesting copies of the Recreation Board minutes for June, July, August, and September of 2014 to include financial statements from the Rec Board for this period. And the Borough is in receipt of a right-to-know request dated the 12th of October 2014 from Ralph Orr of 13th Street, requesting a copy of all clearances, Pennsylvania state and child abuse clearances for those council people overseeing Eddystone Recreation as committee people. Tim, have we received any other right-to-know requests after the 12th of October 2014?
No, but point of clarity, the dates noted on those, the 10-10 ones were received 10-22, and the 10-12 ones were received 10-15. I note that when I get them, because I have 5 days to act and can request an additional 30 days if it's
Okay.
too cumbersome. So,
Procedurally, do you put a stamp on the original?
I just write it my own writing.
You write it in your own?
In the bottom, it's like,
Okay.
that chicken scratch is my writing. But, so, to answer your question there.
Oh, I
Tim,
see, where you got agency use only, it says
Yeah.
date received by the agency
That's my
10/22.
handwriting, yeah. But,
So
so the answer to
Mr.
your
Orr
question is,
submitted on the 10th, or filled the
26th.
form out on the 10th,
I
but
guess.
waited till the 22nd to hand deliver.
Well, I got them on the 22nd, put it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know when he wrote it, but the 10/22, so to answer your question, I have not received any additional right-to-know requests here in the borough since October 22nd, 2014.
What I would like to do over the next week, and if you can carve out some time for me, is just to take an opportunity for the ones that have been filled, to just review the documentation. This way here, I can provide some additional information on how the borough responded. And then the ones to be filled, just get an idea from you of, when do you think that documentation would be pulled and forwarded to Mr. Orr.
No problem. I could give you the ones that are filled tonight if you needed them quick. I mean, it's pretty, we're organized. I mean, I'm
It's
organized.
at the owner, he's expected,
Oh, okay.
okay? He was given this, the response was due on that date, and he asked
And
for an
he asked for
additional
30 days, so he's looking for the 19th of
for the
November.
19th of November.
And that's communicated in writing to the requester.
Right.
Yeah, I do it all in writing. I don't just make my own.
Like this one here, he's got till November 27th, day
Okay.
after Thanksgiving.
And I put that on, I do a letter that says that.
Right.
Yeah.
Public forum. Nobody on the public forum board? Anybody wishing to address council this evening? With nobody coming forward for public forum action items. At the next meeting, the regular council meeting dated the 10th of November 2014, council will be taking action on the treasurer's report. We'll also take action on cash receipts and disbursements journal, taking action on the code enforcement report, the police report, the fire report. If council does not have any questions regarding the settlement of, for Alan Reeves, we will take action on approving that settlement. Also, if I was to get information back from Chief Macheski's counsel, as well as to incorporate any questions or concerns the council has, we could potentially be taking action on accepting or approving the memorandum of understanding with Chief Macheski. Upcoming public meetings, tomorrow evening will be budget meeting number 1, and Karen, that's just going to be finance,
It's
correct?
Finance committee, yeah, because we had to cancel it last
Yeah.
week. That
So
would be
all
Beth-
of council will not be required to attend, however,
Beth
the
Despo only.
finance committee will be requested to attend, and that is a public meeting, so. The 9th of November, which is next Sunday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, would be the retirement ceremony for the police officers to be held down at Joe Hughes Memorial Hall. Karen, you want to give a quick update on the planning for that ceremony?
Yes, I spoke to Edie this evening. She's back and forth with this Coke, trying to get the Coke machine set up down there. Coke's not calling her back, so I guess we'll have to bring sodas in.
Pepsi, no Coke.
Well,
That's, you were thinking it, I just said it.
we haven't, did anybody else call in today? The RSVP?
No,
No?
I didn't RSVP.
You didn't
I
RSVP?
didn't know.
Anson's making,
Sausage scalloping.
sausage scallopini.
Do you
That's
need
what
to know what we're
Lieutenant's right
making?
there.
Do you need to know what we're making? Karen?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have to let Tina know how many people are coming, just so we have some kind of idea.
Okay, I'll let you know what I'm making.
So this would be a covered dish dinner, so if,
Covered dish.
you know, any resident wants to attend with a covered dish, but you don't necessarily have to have a covered dish to attend. We just ask for everybody to turn out and, you know, recognize the officers that have served this borough for many, many years.
Do we have a list?
Yeah, you know things already done it, you know what you have so far.
Yeah, baked beans from Sharon Martin.
Martin, okay.
How much did you
know,
make?
decide what I want to do.
Question, how much did you make? Like a big family size, if you're gonna make something?
I would,
Okay.
I would.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Bubbles Carestis is making chicken casserole. She won't be able to attend, but she's sending a dish. Other than that, cake's getting ordered from Maria's. Beer's being donated. And that's it.
After the
From
meeting,
1 to
Tina, I'll give
1
you
to
my
5.
list.
Nick, when are you gonna be there?
Possibly.
What are you making, Kevin?
Kelly will be there.
It's always a surprise.
Okay, whoever turns out.
Whatever it is, we'll be good.
Oh, I'm sure.
I just think, you know, it's been a lot of years. This should have been done years ago.
Yeah, that's a shame. But you're doing it now, so that's a good thing.
You know, I'm sure there'll be a right to know on that too.
Next regular council meeting is next Monday, the 13th of November, 2014. It's 10th?
10. That's
Why am I getting really bad with my dates?
Age, I ain't saying it.
10th of November is the regular council meeting at 7 o'clock here in Borough Hall. What, did I get it right on the 25th? Because I got it wrong the last time. Was this the 25th for 6 o'clock for Admin and Policy Committee, 7 o'clock for Finance and Audit, and then budget meeting number 2 would be at 7:30.
Could I address you just briefly?
Absolutely.
Speaking as judge of elections for the North Ward, I just want to try to clarify procedures and everything in terms of getting the polling place set up. In the past, not so much this time, but in the past, people have asked me what I wanted there, and I just told them what I wanted. And I know that somebody has to move the tables over there, and I know it requires some effort on people's parts. And I know some people, at least in the past, have thought that what I was asking for down there was unreasonable. But I just want to clarify, just so that you understand, we need 3 tables just for the poll workers and for the documents that we have to lay out. So the reason I requested 6 tables was so that there'd be a couple of tables that we could put our bags and things on, rather than putting them on the floor, which is still soaked with oil, since it is a garage. And also to have a table to put any donuts on, or if there are watchers and they want to sit someplace at a table, that they would have someplace to sit. So, you know, we do have 3 tables down there, but there's not going to be any place to put the donuts, and if any watchers come, they're going to stand and they're not going to have any place to sit down. And if we have any extra chairs, our things are going on those chairs, so we don't have to put them on the ground in the garage.
You want 6 tables, 6 chairs, correct?
Yeah, I understand that there's already 8 chairs down there.
All
But
right, so there's 8 chairs, and we'll put the flashlight in through the window, because I saw at least 2, probably 3 tables. I think Tina confirmed that there's 3 there.
Yes, I got them as many as I could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had 3 tables.
I
and
know,
3
I know,
chairs,
I
and
know
they
it's
took
not,
their broad.
Gina couldn't get into the room where the tables were.
I don't
Okay.
even know if there's 6 tables there.
Okay.
But that,
I can
that
give you
place-
2 tables for tomorrow.
Well, all I'm
Tables
saying,
too.
all I'm saying is that if the tables aren't gonna be there, someone should tell me before the election morning, because I
I
don't
can
like
take a
arriving
ride
there
down
at
the fire.
6:30 in the morning and finding out that,
I'll take a ride down to the fire company immediately following
Maybe,
this
maybe
meeting.
you should get a hold of the Republican Party leader and ask him.
Yeah.
I'll take a ride down to the firehouse after this meeting. I'll grab 3 tables from the firehouse and from Joe Hughes Memorial Hall and make sure that they're up there for tomorrow morning.
and I'd be happy to go with you.
And then we'll have to make sure that they're back down.
And if you wanted somebody to open up the door before we leave this evening, that way you can set the tables up and make sure it's all set. One last thing you gotta do at 6:30 tomorrow morning.
I don't need to inconvenience anybody to that extent. You know, I mean, if we're putting the tables in there,
I
we're
gotta
gonna,
open the door anyway to put the
I
tables
have
in.
a key to it.
you have a key to the,
Yes, I do.
okay. It's good to know where there's a key.
You also have the truck, they might need you to go down and get the tables too. Be easier.
Well, I'll tell you something else, that right now, as far as I know, that a check is still coming through to the fire department, paying them for the use of their facilities. And it might be just as well for me to switch over, and rather than troubling the borough, I could just talk to the fire department and ask them to bring tables over there, and then make sure they get their check from the county. And that way it won't be an issue in the future with the borough.
I don't believe a check came into the firehouse last year.
No, it didn't, because I was told that the fire department had nothing whatsoever to do with the election.
Right.
And you know who told me that?
General updates. For those who visit the Borough of Eddystone's new website, we've successfully been able to divert any traffic that is typically using eddystoneborough.com over to eddystoneborough.org. So we've basically captured the domain name of .com, moved it over into the GoDaddy account that is where we're housing the .org. And if you inadvertently type in eddystoneborough.com, you'll automatically be redirected as opposed to a Google search coming up saying, do you mean .org? So the traffic is starting to pick up with the website. We've been working with the webmaster. She is actually designing a postcard that would be distributed throughout the community. The postcard would serve actually 3 functions. Function number 1 is just to make the residents aware that we do have a new website and the content that they can find on the website. Number 2, it provides information about recycling. And number 3, it provides information about the Eddystone Police Department, the tips.com, and Chief Macheski has also set up, as he discussed at last month's meeting, a phone number that you can call and leave a tip. If you don't have email access, you can now just dial the phone and leave a voicemail, which the officers check. I want to say he checks it 3 times a day. Just to make sure that there's no messages on there for tips about any crimes in the community. With that being said, remind everybody that if you do need an emergency response, always dial 911. Even if you're looking for an officer to report to the house, if you're looking for a police report, the word from Chief Macheski is dial 911. There is a number of the police headquarters if you have a question, if you're looking for a parking permit, something that you do not need a police report for, you can call the police headquarters. And now we've also instituted a line that is specifically dedicated towards crime fighting and allowing residents to leave tips on the line for, something for the police department to investigate. We should go to print on those postcards, I would say, this week. And I'm hoping that I can tap into the chief's resources, as well as I'll ask the mayor to do a little bit of door knocking. And, we'll go door to door and hand out the postcards and meet and greet as many residents as we possibly can to introduce them to the new tool in the department. It's close. We didn't fall back. We're spring ahead.
8:45 was, now it's 8:45.
Okay.
But it should be 8:45. Yeah. They just have to fix it.
They gotta reset the timer, yes.
One of the recommendations that we're receiving from the webmaster is that in addition to capturing EddystoneBorough.com, that we should also be looking to make sure that the borough owns what I'll call like domain names. I'm going to point to Mr. Wilson, who has acquired a lot of these domain names, is Eddystone.us, EddystoneBorough.com, which is BOROUGH, EddystonePA.us, EddystonePA.net, EddystonePay.info, EddystonePA.org. So I'll be preparing a letter to you, Mr. Wilson, that's officially requesting the borough's purchase of those domain names, and you were gracious enough to provide the cost that you paid for them, so that's what I'll be using in the letter. Roundtable discussion, I'll start with the mayor.
I'm good.
Councilwoman Gross?
I'm just looking forward to the 9th, to the community recognition for all the police officers.
I do have something after all.
Nope, Mr. Turner.
Mr. Turner?
There is a right to know in here for all the recreation board minutes for June, July, and June, July, August, and September. Now, wouldn't that be part of when Danielle was in charge down there? And Norman and Hope
I
with the financial records?
It wouldn't have anything to do with Danielle, it would be to do with Mr. Norman Quinn and
Okay, they're going to provide me the financial records of those months?
secretary.
If they exist in the borough, then Mr. Vicente would grant the request. If they don't exist, then the letter's going to say no such boroughs exist in a borough building.
Okay.
Just along the lines of that, Mayor, is that the October 12th? I don't know,
Yeah,
October
10, 12.
17th, when I wrote to the requester, I know I put, I put, we're getting together police records, and blah, 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 and then I must tell you that a prior rec board of the borough may have some of the items you requested, and I'm attempting to gather them. But, like the President Stewart said, what's in the borough, we do try to, well, we try, I mean, if we have it or think we have it, we make every effort to get it, copy it for a requester pursuant to the statute, but, yeah, I'm familiar with that request that you just mentioned, and, I think there's a number of items that aren't in this office.
Right.
Yeah.
They never do.
Tim, I know that there is, when you're responding to a right to know, the wording of the right to know is important, the way the person who's submitting the right to know writes the right to know. And then your response to the right to know, that your language has to be very precise, for legal and other reasons. And I just wanted to say that when, and I don't know whether this would go contrary to how you have to do it, but when you say that no such record exists within the borough, it leaves it unclear whether any such record ever did exist in the borough, which leaves the borough open to the accusation that they lost the record. If it were possible in some of these cases to say no such record has ever been submitted to the borough, I guess maybe you wouldn't be able to say that.
That's the thing, Glenn, you're talking about, how could I say that?
You wouldn't know.
That record never possibly, you know what I mean, you're creating, Yeah, that's kind of circular. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I can say this to you. Our intention in replying to these is if there is public documents available,
Right.
we want to copy them and get them to the requester.
Right.
We may have no, quarrel with, the statute is our obligation and we
Right.
take it seriously. But like I say, if we have it, other than redacting personal information, people that work here, we try to supply it to the public. We do.
I have submitted rights to know, and I feel that
I
you've
know.
always been very fair.
Well, and you've been fair with your time, but I know you've submitted them.
Yeah. So I think you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. I think you're doing your
Yes.
job properly. Speaking as someone who's submitted one. It is unfortunate though that sometimes when the borough has to say that no record exists, and you say, well, how can there not be a record of some of these things? How can borough funds have been expended without any record of where that money went? How can it does put the borough in a bad light, because I guess what's happened is in the past nobody was really keeping an eye on some of these things. Now we talk about something like the rec board. I know the rec board council had asked the rec board to submit financial records, and the rec board refused to submit financial records to the borough, even though they were expending borough funds that the borough gave them. And that seems to be where a lot of the controversy in the rec board started, from what I can see, was when they were asked to be accountable for the borough funds that they were spending. They insisted that they had no obligation to do so. And I'm assuming that the way the borough rec board is set up now, that kind of thing's not going to happen in the future. But it's unfortunate that it seems to me that those records were never properly submitted to the borough as they should have been, and that's why they're not available. And I believe the same is true for many of the records I've requested in the past, that they don't exist because either they weren't submitted or they disappeared. So it's unfortunate that the borough sometimes has to look bad because someone else didn't do the proper thing.
Mayor, to just kind of expound a little bit upon, what the intent, or what my intent is going to be, is that, we've received all of these rights to knows. The borough is going to be very transparent in the way that we answer these. If Mr. Orr happens to be in attendance at the next meeting, we're going to go through the same exercise of reading the rights to knows. Mr. Vicente is going to kind of brief me during the course of the week on, how we responded to each one of these, what documentations exist. I've had multiple conversations with Chief Macheski. I'm going to use as an example the right to know for the total cost of overtime for the police department since January 1st, 2014. We were to simply say, and I'm just going to arbitrarily say 500 hours of overtime, and I'm just making that number up. What is not captured when I say 500 hours of overtime is that later this month, we're going to be asked by Walmart to provide extra duty for police officers during their Black Friday holiday. We may have 100 hours or 150 hours that our officers are paid extra duty by Walmart to provide a detail. So by making the statement there's 500 hours, it's not necessarily an accurate account of the number of hours, because on the back end we're being reimbursed by a private organization to provide extra duty. I know we also do it for Matrix.
So that'd be another right to know that.
Well, but there's a balance there. We've
Right.
got grants that are associated
Yeah.
with the aggressive
I
driving
agree.
program.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So it's not a simple, the right to know request came in as a one-liner. Total cost of all overtime for the police department since January 1st, 2017, or 2014 under the direction of Alan Reeves Jr. By giving a one-line answer, we're not accurately providing the information. And this is where I know Chief Macheski is, how many layers, how much detail do you want me to provide to answer this? You know, there's certain overtime that we concede as a borough council. We want the bike patrol. You know, we've heard from the residents that the bike patrol is important. That bike patrol is an extra duty.
That's right.
So when we put the bike patrol out on the weekends in the summer, that is overtime that we are knowingly spending as a borough because we believe the community policing provided by the bike patrol is important to our residents.
Do you really think the taxpayers mind? They were the ones that asked for the bike patrol,
Right.
therefore.
And they were happy to see it back. They really were.
Oh, absolutely.
They were happy to see it back.
And that's really where, what I've asked Chief Macheski to do, and I'm sure that if he has not already shared it with
I've
you,
already talked to him about that.
you know, he's going to provide some bullet points that says, okay, you know, while our answer may be, and I'll make it up again, 500 hours, you know, these are other tasks and other reasons why we're spending the overtime dollars.
Can I be excused to shut my windows?
Sure. We're almost done. Are you done with your round table?
Yeah.
Councilman Patterson,
I have nothing.
Vice President Reeves.
Yeah, I hope to see everybody Sunday. It should be a good time. Well deserved. That's it. No.
Done? I did receive a text message from Councilman Donahue. He's feeling a little under the weather. I also received a text message from Councilwoman Thompson. She had an appointment that ran a little longer than what was anticipated, so she wasn't able to attend. But, you know, certainly we will be briefing both those individuals on what transpired this evening at the workshop.
That's Bella's home taking care of her Josephine's sick, and she's taking care of Julian.
She'll need to be here for the cash receipts and disbursement portion of the meeting next month, or next week,
She'll
so.
be here next week. She will be here.
And I hope to see everybody at the recognition ceremony on Sunday. May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Make a motion.
Meeting adjourned.